What if every so-called peace negotiation played out more like a carefully rehearsed war game, each round of dialogue a dress rehearsal for the next strike? Imagine a world where diplomacy, which should evoke images of olive branches and earnest handshakes, instead hums with the metallic undertone of drone wings, their paths set by satellites and algorithms rather than hope or trust. This is not a distant dystopia. It is the world we live in today, where the line between talk and action blurs, and where every word uttered in public can mask 1,000 silent maneuvers behind closed doors. Consider the headlines. United States officials, with practiced gravitas, repeat calls for peace and stability. Yet, as these statements echo across newsrooms, a parallel reality unfolds in the shadows. According to multiple investigative reports, including those by the Financial Times, American intelligence agencies have not only mapped out Russian energy systems, but have delivered these high-value blueprints directly to Ukrainian command centers. These are not vague suggestions, but surgical point-by-point instructions. Which refinery is most vulnerable? Which time window is optimal? What countermeasures to expect? And even which weather conditions will best mask an incoming drone? Take, for example, the series of drone attacks on Russian oil refineries since the late summer of the previous year. These were not random acts of violence. Data shows that, out of 38 major Russian refineries, at least 16, nearly half, have been hit by coordinated assaults. Each operation was meticulously planned, with American analysts feeding Ukrainian counterparts not just coordinates, but the latest satellite imagery, air defense layouts, and even the timing of local security shift changes. It is as if every roundtable about peace is held atop a digital map dotted with targets, and every handshake is followed by a silent nod toward the next point of impact. This tactic is not new in history, but its modern execution is chilling in its precision. During the Cold War, both American and Soviet intelligence agencies routinely used diplomatic meetings as covers for espionage and covert operations. The difference now is the scale and the speed. What once took months of reconnaissance and cross-checking now unfolds in real time, from thousands of miles away, driven by data streams and artificial intelligence. The consequences for the global economy are profound. When critical energy infrastructure is sabotaged, oil prices surge, entire supply chains are disrupted, and millions of ordinary people feel the ripple effects at the gas station, in their heating bills, and in the sudden scarcity of everyday goods. Let us ground this with a historical parallel. In the early 1970s, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries oil embargo sent shockwaves across the world. Long lines at gas stations, energy rationing, and economic recession followed. Back then, the levers of power were crude, with embargoes and production cuts wielded as blunt instruments. Today, the tools are digital, covert, and exponentially more effective. One well-placed cyber strike or drone attack on a single refinery can achieve more disruption than weeks of embargoes. The stakes have never been higher, and the players never more sophisticated. But why resort to such ruthless strategy behind the mask of diplomacy? The answer is brutally simple. Control over resources equals leverage over the future. Oil, gas, rare earth metals. These are the lifeblood of economies and the backbone of military power. Public appeals for stability are often nothing more than a front for economic warfare. When a superpower disables a rival's refineries, it is not just about the immediate loss of fuel. It is about forcing that rival to the negotiating table in a weakened state, ready to accept unfavorable terms. Imagine, for instance, if your country's main source of heating fuel was suddenly knocked offline in the middle of winter. Prices would skyrocket overnight. Industries would grind to a halt. Political leaders would face mounting pressure from citizens, many of whom might lose jobs or even homes. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It has unfolded in various forms from Venezuela to Ukraine, from Libya to Syria. In the present, behind every diplomatic handshake or summit photo op, there is a silent calculation. Who holds the resources, holds the future. The real contests rarely make it to the televised debates. Instead, they play out in encrypted messages, satellite feeds, and the silent launch of yet another drone. Let us examine how this new game plays out in alliances. The partnership between the United States and Ukraine offers a textbook example. What began as basic data sharing, maps, general intelligence, and logistic updates, has become something far more decisive. American agencies now provide Ukrainian forces with precise coordinates, real-time weather updates, and detailed flight plans for each operation. Ukrainian officers may press the launch button, but it is Washington's invisible hand that guides the strike. This erases the traditional boundary between indirect support and direct participation, creating a new paradigm for modern warfare. Remote-controlled, data-driven, and deniable. Publicly, the narrative remains unchanged. The United States supports peace, urges negotiation, and condemns escalation. Privately, the reality is more complex. For every statement about dialogue, there is a package of targeting data, a list of vulnerabilities, and a silent assurance that the next move has already been mapped out. Diplomacy becomes a riddle. One face smiles for the cameras, while the other plots the next offensive. These refinery strikes, which have targeted nearly 1 in 2 Russian oil processing facilities, are not isolated incidents. They are the visible tip of a sustained, coordinated campaign. American involvement is not limited to providing data. It extends to planning, logistics, and even after-action analysis. This level of integration is reminiscent of the joint operations conducted during World War II, when Allied intelligence meticulously coordinated bombing campaigns over Nazi Germany. The difference today is the deniability. Modern actors can claim plausible distance even as their fingerprints are found on every blueprint. Every gesture of partnership now carries an invisible push toward escalation. The risk is immediate. Those who misunderstand these new rules empower actors who thrive on cunning and ambiguity. The world has shifted from the age of visible armies massing at borders to one shaped by cyber strikes, sabotage, and intelligence operations executed in silence. History is replete with examples where the real battle was fought far from the negotiating table. In the early 21st century, the invasion of Iraq was publicly justified with talk of weapons of mass destruction and regime change. Behind the scenes, securing control over oil fields and pipelines was an unspoken priority. The aftermath left the region destabilized for years, with oil infrastructure repeatedly targeted by insurgent groups and rival powers. The lesson: when resources are at stake, the language of peace often conceals far more aggressive intentions. Now, as the world watches the Ukraine conflict unfold, a new theater of struggle is taking shape, this time in the resource-rich landscapes of South America, most notably Venezuela. Here, the same invisible currents that swirl over Ukraine and Russia are gathering force. Venezuela, once one of the world's leading oil exporters, now finds itself at a crossroads. American warships appear off the Caribbean coast, not to deliver humanitarian aid, but to project power and signal that control over oil and strategic minerals is very much in play. In Caracas, frantic negotiations take place. The Venezuelan government offers barrels of crude and reserves of gold, bartering for time and relief from crushing sanctions. The United States, true to form, speaks of peace and humanitarian support, but actions tell a different story. Hybrid warfare, sanctions, blackouts, sabotage, and the support of proxy fighters becomes the weapon of choice. Every peace proposal arrives with a shadow: renewed intelligence operations, covert strikes, and waves of disinformation. The goal is clear: bend the Venezuelan leadership until it breaks, and secure favorable access to its vast resources. China and Russia, wary of another Western-orchestrated regime change, draw their own lines in the sand. Their support for Venezuela is not mere rhetoric. It is a calculated maneuver to shield their economic and strategic interests. Russian military advisors, Chinese investment in energy infrastructure, and joint ventures in mining all serve as counterweights to American pressure. This is not an anomaly, but part of a recognizable pattern. Consider the fate of resource-rich nations over the past 3 decades. Iraq, Libya, Angola, Congo. The list is long, and the outcomes are strikingly similar. Each time, foreign intervention is justified in the name of democracy, security, or humanitarian need. But behind the slogans, the real contest is for oil, gas, or minerals. Warships, sanctions, and special forces are dispatched not out of pure concern for liberty, but because whoever controls these resources commands the global economy, and by extension, the technological future. In our present era, rare earth metals have quietly become the new oil. These elements are essential for everything from smartphones and electric vehicles to missile guidance systems and satellites. The competition for rare earths is fierce and growing. Military deployments and trade wars are no longer just about barrels and pipelines, but about invisible elements that power our daily lives. The pursuit of these resources has already sparked conflict in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, destabilizing entire regions and leaving millions vulnerable. Let us pause here and imagine a practical scenario. Suppose a single rare earth mine in the Democratic Republic of Congo shuts down due to conflict or political instability. Within days, global prices for key elements like cobalt or tantalum skyrocket. Tech giants in Silicon Valley scramble to secure alternative supplies. Electric car manufacturers in Germany put production lines on hold. Consumers around the world see price hikes and product shortages. What may seem like a distant event quickly becomes a problem at your local store, your workplace, and your home. If this cycle of resource-driven conflict persists, if diplomacy remains a mask for economic siege and military coercion, entire continents could descend into chaos. Infrastructure will be ruined, economies fractured, and the digital lifelines we rely on could one day be rationed by whoever controls the right mines, refineries, and shipping routes. The struggle for resources is no longer confined to battlefields or boardrooms. It is waged everywhere, shaping the fate of nations and the daily lives of billions. Could a hidden element, one you have never heard of, determine whether you can charge your phone tonight, drive to work tomorrow, or keep your lights on during a winter storm? Welcome to the era where rare earth metals have quietly replaced oil as the world's most contested resource, and the race to control them is reshaping global power dynamics. China, for example, holds more than 2/3 of the world's rare earth reserves. In the past 5 years, it has tightened export controls, restricted access, and sent shockwaves through global industries, technology, automotive, and renewable energy among them. A single government decision in Beijing now has the power to disrupt entire global supply chains, leaving companies and consumers in the West scrambling for alternatives. In response, the United States and the European Union have launched ambitious initiatives. Billions of dollars are being invested in new mining operations, refining facilities, and research into alternative materials. Tariffs and export bans are deployed in an attempt to break China's stranglehold. Yet, progress is slow, and the challenges are immense. Mines take years to develop, environmental regulations are stringent, and political opposition can stall even the best-laid plans. Russia, meanwhile, sees opportunity in the chaos. Sitting atop the world's second-largest reserves of rare earths and other critical minerals, Moscow is ramping up investment in mining and refining capacity. The Kremlin hopes to turn these resources into a new lever of geopolitical influence, offering supply agreements to neighbors and strategic partners, while holding the threat of disruption over rivals. But the resource struggle is not limited to superpowers. Across Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia, countries long treated as mere pawns in the global supply game are seizing their moment. Leaders in countries like Brazil, Indonesia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo are demanding better deals, fairer partnerships, and a genuine voice at the negotiating table. Some have even formed coalitions to set their own terms, inspired by the OPEC model. All these moves are fueling a new kind of trade war. Tariffs spike overnight. Export bans appear with little warning. Technology companies face the real prospect that a single supply disruption could bring entire industries to a standstill. For billions of people, the risk is no longer theoretical. Losing access to key minerals could mean higher prices, job losses, or sudden shortages of critical technology. The polite language of diplomacy and cooperation is now little more than a veneer. Beneath the surface, national security imperatives drive every decision. The line between commerce and conflict is blurred, and both governments and ordinary citizens must navigate a world where the next crisis could erupt without warning. But the resource battle is only one front. The deeper question remains: how far are world powers willing to go? What unexpected consequences might ripple across the globe? In a world where resource leverage quietly decides destinies, who truly gets a voice, and who is left carrying the cost? Let us be absolutely clear. Global and domestic stability both depend on access to energy, technology, and raw materials. Supply chains are the new front lines, silent but critical. Every phone, car, and light switch relies on a complex network that can be disrupted or weaponized overnight. If you assume that your fuel, your electronics, or even your lights are guaranteed, think again. Modern diplomacy is often just the surface. Beneath the talk of peace or partnership, the real contest is over oil, lithium, and critical software. Ask yourself, what is truly at stake in each new international agreement? Which resources are being fought over, and who will win or lose if the balance tips? No country or individual can afford to be passive. Diversification is not just a buzzword, it is a lifeline. For nations, it means building new trade routes, investing in homegrown technology, and forging partnerships outside traditional alliances. For individuals, it means acquiring adaptable skills, supporting resilient industries, and thinking critically about where your essentials come from. Practical steps are essential. Nations must invest in research and development to find alternatives to scarce minerals. They should form alliances with like-minded partners to pool resources and share innovation. On a personal level, individuals can support companies that prioritize ethical sourcing and transparency. Educators can include resource literacy in school curricula, ensuring the next generation understands the stakes. Demand transparency from your leaders. Ask, where does your country stand on rare minerals, energy security, and tech access? Insist on honest answers, not vague reassurances. Behind every promise of stability, there is a real risk. Lose the resource game, and ordinary people pay the price, through higher costs, job losses, or sudden shortages. Pay attention to new players rewriting the rules. Countries across the global south, once dismissed as marginal, are forming alliances, leveraging their assets, and shifting the balance of power. The next big supply shock or breakthrough may come not from Washington or Beijing, but from Lagos, Jakarta, or Brasilia. The world is changing, and those who watch closely will be best positioned to adapt. Your daily choices matter. Global resource politics is not just for diplomats. It shapes your paycheck, your bills, and your community's strength. Ignore these shifts, and you may find yourself caught off guard the next time a shortage hits. Remember the toilet paper shortages of the recent pandemic. Now imagine that, but with your phone, your car, or your home heating. The stakes are exponentially higher. History is instructive. When people stay passive, they end up paying, not just with their wallets, but with their futures. Distant decisions, made in boardrooms or war rooms, can alter local realities overnight. The energy crisis of the 1970s, the food shortages during World War II, or the microchip shortages of recent years, all teach the same lesson. Vigilance and adaptation are key. The world's resource struggle is accelerating, and the game is growing more ruthless. What happens when desperation pushes nations, and individuals, to cross lines once thought unthinkable? Consider the current scramble for lithium in South America's so-called lithium triangle. Multinational corporations, often backed by state actors, compete fiercely for access, sometimes fueling local unrest. In Bolivia, for example, a proposed deal with a foreign company sparked months of protest, government upheaval, and even international condemnation. The playbook is as old as empire, but the stakes are entirely modern. If the fate of the world now depends on what lies hidden beneath the surface, are you prepared to dig deeper? Behind every handshake and summit, a silent contest for dominance churns. Nations do not merely negotiate, they orchestrate in shadow, their true intentions masked by the language of peace. While the world watches the stage, the real action unfolds in places unseen, mapped in satellite feeds and executed with the precision of a drone's silent glide. This conflict has evolved beyond borders or armies. Now it is about pipelines, refineries, and rare metals entombed in the earth. Whoever controls these resources holds tomorrow's power, shaping everything from the cost to fill your car to the chips that drive your phone. Modern diplomacy arrives with a shadow. For every public promise, there is a hidden maneuver, a covert data breach, a supply chain quietly severed, a warning whispered in the dark. America and its rivals are not simply talking. They are calculating, tracing each other's vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Beneath appeals for dialogue, blueprints are drawn, infrastructure is targeted, and sometimes, entire regions are left without power. Ignore the warning signs, and tomorrow's shortages will not wait for you. Fuel, technology, even daily security, all dangle by a thread. The unprepared will feel the shockwaves. Higher costs, empty shelves, lost connections, and opportunities that vanish with little warning. So, what will you trust? The headlines or the tremors beneath them? The future will be claimed by those who look beyond the surface, who challenge easy narratives, and who probe the silent shifts reshaping our world right now. This is not just a story for diplomats or generals. It is about your life, your choices, and your resilience. Will you sense the subtle changes before crisis strikes, or awaken too late to a reality already transformed by those who acted sooner? True battle lines are not the ones drawn on maps. They are traced by oil tankers, by rare earth shipments, by the invisible flow of power through hidden cables. If you wish to shape the future, begin by asking, who holds the keys, and what are they willing to risk? Only by digging deeper can we see past the talk and seize the chance to act, before the opportunity is lost. Consider this your invitation, not just to watch, but to participate. Learn, question, and adapt, because the world is being reshaped beneath your feet. The next crisis, or opportunity, may already be underway. Will you be a spectator or a player?